Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Tim, I come from the CluedIn team, and today we're going to focus on the outlook of where CluedIn is focusing on from the Agentic Data Management perspective. Really, I guess, honing in on what are those foundational elements that we're putting in place from an R&D and innovation perspective to really allow companies to see this future of agentic workloads, agents working with other agents, and what is the kind of scaffolding, the guardrails, the harnesses that need to be put in place to make sure that comes to a positive fruition. So let's dive in and take a look. For those of you who aren't aware of CluedIn, we are a platform that focuses in bringing data quality and master data management capabilities, but then fueled and scaled with agentic workloads. We are trusted across many industries and globally, and here are just a handful of our wonderful customers that we get to work with on a daily basis, and really focusing on bringing scale to their data management practices. Now, I think we would all kind of agree, at least in the discussions we're having with our customers, our prospects, and our partners, is that generally we're kind of all really focused on the same types of use cases and goal. There's this kind of inevitable goal we have in mind when it comes to AI that we're all thinking about. It's all on the tip of our tongues, but there's a lot of work in front of us to get to this point. And that particular kind of goal is, how am I going to take our company knowledge, the data that has been accruing at our businesses, to form reporting and analytics, to form automation, to increase operational efficiencies? How do I actually bring this and AI together? I think we can all probably agree that data is and will continue to play a pretty pivotal role in the future of our companies, in helping us make better decisions, in helping us automate tasks that are manual, in helping us get insights about what we should be working and focusing our priorities on next. And AI and data is kind of at the heart of this. But we want to make sure we're doing this in a kind of reliable manner. Not only from good governance and good compliance, but also just from building a layer of trust in actually utilizing this data in the day-to-day decisions that we make. I don't think there's a lack of access to data. I think the general complexity is that there is access to data across the business, but once we actually start to pick that up and use it for use cases, there's this inherent lack of trust that exists in the enterprise, and you are definitely not alone in this discussion. In fact, if you look at some of the analysts in the space, the percentage ranges, yet roughly all agree on the same types of metrics, that a large portion of enterprises have an immense lack of trust in the data that they have access to. So access, scale, speed, velocity, these are not necessarily the complexities that enterprises are feeling today. It is this general feeling that ubiquitous access to data that's actually trustworthy and ready to use is where the complexity is. And of course, this is the data that we want to drive towards, not only the use cases we've all had for some time, like reporting and automation, things like insights, but naturally all of the kind of ambitions that we have of fueling AI use cases backed by a backbone of solid data within our enterprise. So we're roughly all talking not only publicly, but also this is just the common themes we're talking with our customers, with our future customers, and with our partners as well. And I mean, I guess the relatable thing here is that we're actually all can experience this pretty quickly and pretty easily, in that if we have access to these chat interfaces, that it's pretty quick to be able to hook this up to a data source and see some results. And the gap between that and actually having a result that is easily explainable, easily trustable, easily attributable, and all these layers of trust that are needed is really where we're seeing the gap today, and where CluedIn can help fill that void for you. I'd like you to take on an exercise. This is an exercise, a question that we actually run in workshops with our customers. And that is, given this hypothetical situation, let's just say for a moment that AI has no qualms. It's got no hallucination it generally in general just works really well. It scales, it's cost efficient, you can run it across huge amounts of data, it works reliably, consistently, it's cost effective. Just for a moment, let's just enter that world. What would you do? What is the use case? What is the challenge that you would solve that you can't solve today? Or what is the opportunity that you would take that is hard, if not impossible, to do without this kind of heuristic world of AI involved? And this is an exercise we often play out with our partners and our customers. And as you can imagine, the response is a mix of silence. It's a mix of answers that, if you actually look deep down, there's not huge dependencies on needing AI to solve those use cases, all the way up to kind of utopian ideas that not even with the kind of utopian world we're painting here right now, where AI just has no issues and scales and is cost effective and works very reliably, that it wouldn't even really be able to achieve, or that the output from that would not be something that would substantially move the needle for those enterprises as well. It's actually a really interesting exercise to play through. What I can do from my own personal perspective and from CluedIn's perspective is kind of paint you examples of what we would do. At CluedIn, we're pretty focused on the importance of that human-to-human relationship when it comes to working with customers and partners, but also during the sales process as well. And ironically, I think in the world of AI, that sales is going to be one of those motions where more than ever we really appreciate that human-to-human relationship that is formed. And this is also moving into the kind of customer success involvement. I want to be working with people. I want to be buying from people. And I think that's more important than ever. And so, for us and me personally at CluedIn, an example that I could say where AI could definitely really help scale, and having really solid trusted data to be able to fuel that, whether it's human to AI or if it's agent to agent work that's being done to, in the end, maybe surface back something to me. I would love to optimize my time to be with people. It's to be in workshops with customers. It's to be on sales calls with executives to, talk them through what we're doing, how we think, how we do things uniquely in our space. This is an example where the kind of elements around that, I would love AI to help scale that for me. And I want to make sure that experience is great. But really I want to optimize my time, that in a perfect world, I would like to spend 10 hours a day, and 10 hours of that day is me in workshops, me in discussions with people. And that's either from a sales perspective, a customer success perspective, with partners, etc. That's what I would like to optimize my time for. How can AI help with that? And as many of these elements can already be scaled really well, but the reality is just without that high quality data, it's really hard to actually scale these in a reliable manner. You can imagine showing up to one of those calls where the research and analysis that's been done and I've been able to consume to optimize my time. If that was wrong, that's a bad experience. But as long as given that analysis is solid, I feel like that relationship that you form on the calls or in person is really where this the time can not be optimized by the use of AI. So this is a practical example of how we think about a real use case of AI and how it can help scale, but making sure it's built on high quality data. And I think one of the reasons why one of the outputs of these discussions is silence is that when you get an experience like this, it's very much an open canvas in that basically here we're saying, I can really help you with anything. And there's a couple of complexities with this. Number one, you're met with this, okay, so where do I start? And of course, templates and examples are kind of good ways to get things starting, but I think in majority of these cases, these examples and templates are not exactly what you're wanting to do and don't always really yield the result that you're after. And so one of the complexities is this abundance of flexibility in that, well, we could really do anything at this point. The other issue, and that we've all run into practically, is that with this kind of open-ended canvas, for many use cases, it actually ends in that it can't do what we're wanting. And that could be because of limitations of the AI, it could be limitations of our access to data, it could also be, in many cases, the data that we're actually integrating into our workflows is not in an AI-ready state. And AI-ready state is a very deep conversation to go down, potentially something we can evolve in this webinar session today. So it's these types of challenges that at CluedIn we are wanting to really focus on and help our customers solve for the data management practices. And as you can imagine, every tool, every software, every SaaS provider today is and will continue to focus on how they can kind of bring AI into their products, but how they can play a useful role on that supply chain of data. What I can say from the CluedIn perspective is what we're really focusing on in that supply chain. And you can imagine it's not CluedIn's responsibility, nor would we want it to be in that supply chain, that it knows how to build integration pipelines, that it knows how to build a great Power BI report, that it knows how to write great high-speed data processing notebooks, that it knows how to write code for optimizing database structures. And this is not the responsibility of CluedIn. Although those are responsibilities I would want in my chain, it's really CluedIn's job to be able to bring in an audience into the supply chain that's often not in that supply chain of data, and give them an opportunity, a conduit, a canvas to be able to instill their knowledge of data into the overall flow of data throughout the business. There's many names for these people. Subject matter experts, data stewards, just as simple examples. You've all met them. They're these individuals, groups of individuals that work in the lines of business, and they know more about a particular data set than anybody else. And often is the case, they know much more about the data than IT and engineering. Now, IT and engineering know a lot about data in general. They know how to get data to you fast, reliably, model it, structure. They know all these great things to do with data, but they're not the knowledge experts on that data, the subject matter experts. And like I said, you've met them before. You could put an Excel sheet in front of them of your customers and they can point out something wrong within 5 seconds. CluedIn is a conduit for those types of people to be able to play their role in data. And really what we're doing here is to allow them to move at the speed and the scale of AI, but having all of the guardrails and scaffolding in place that they can do that without the fear of, will the AI do something wrong tonight when I put my head on that pillow and go to sleep? And so really I think it's CluedIn's responsibility to bring those personas in and then offer them a canvas to be able to do data management safely. Now, at CluedIn, we have quite a history with AI. In fact, for 2+ years, we've had our Copilot experience out with our customers, that human to AI interaction. Go and do this thing for me. Wait a few seconds, here is what I've done for you. And really that is very valuable from translating something into something technical, technically underlying. Good examples that we list here, things like create me this policy, let me verbalize it, let me explain what it is, but translate it into what CluedIn needs to operationalize that, whether that's deterministic rules, logic, code, things like this. So there's many practical kind of human to AI interactions that are available via our Copilot experience. But what we've learned is that this Copilot experience almost formulates the start of how agents will start to talk to other agents. And there's essentially two different modes that we see. One is a human triggering an AI to have an agent-to-agent discussion. And then there is almost like the background job approach, which is you give responsibility to an agent, and that agent is almost autonomous in its way to say, well, I don't have to wait for anyone to prompt me to do anything. I know my responsibilities. I know the data I have access to. I'm going to go off and do these things proactively. This doesn't negate a human in the loop. Actually, the opposite, it requires a human in the loop. But what it does is it changes the workflow from, instead of having to wait for a prompt to go off and do work, and that very much works in these kind of proactive examples where we want a report. We want something visualized based off data. Great for that. Then there's the kind of reactive, which is there's data that has been imported into some system. We already know we should check it for quality, for duplicates, for missing values. We know we should do some compliance checks. We know we should do these things. And that's the other flow that I talk about here. So our work and R&D and time with our customers using the Copilot formulated a lot around what we need to do to get these AI agents in control, governed, and to be able to scale as well. So with that in mind, this idea of autonomy with control is almost, there's a juxtaposition there in that we want autonomy, not automation. And the juxtaposition really comes from, if we give these agents a lot of autonomy, at what point do we kind of yield back in a scalable way to those that are responsible and accountable to make that kind of final decision on, yep, go ahead and do what you found, do what you've suggested. And it has been a lot of research and working with our customers to get these agents to the point where they are something that customers will turn on in production, on production workloads, at production scale, in a confident manner, knowing that these kind of guardrails, these scaffolding pieces are in place. These are just a handful of those items that are a necessity, at least in the data management flow, for this to happen. But we're going to dive into a little bit more detail about what is needed and why this is really setting the foundation of where CluedIn will be going in the future with its agentic workloads. The reality is, you can't build AI in a white ivory tower. AI, more than a lot of other canvases and tools in the past, is something that you need to build with your customers. This is really only where the reality comes out, where the rubber hits the road and you realize what is stopping a company running AI on their most important data at scale and having something that is more than a POC, more than a POV, something that's running for months and months and months and months in a reliable and consistent manner. And it took us at CluedIn roughly a year to formulate this set of guardrails and harnesses before the majority of our customers had this turned on. CluedIn released our in October 2024 is when we released our agents to the market. This was in a private preview. It was only 1 year later until we had the majority of our customers, over 50%, running these agents in production. And this was really to be able to work on those guardrails that will allow them to run in a reliable manner. And you can see a couple of things and pointers to what those guardrails are, but I thought I would give you kind of a little bit more of an extrapolated view of what these were. So I'm not going to walk through all of these, but this is the first page of many of what we needed to put in place that would not only technically get these things working reliably, but also from just a people and a process perspective, make enough people comfortable that, okay, I'm more than happy to run this. And this was pleasing IT and security and procurement and of course the user team. Everyone involved really had to be able to sign off on doing this. So let's just walk through a couple that are really interesting. I'd say the first thing is that our agents are read-only. They can't do anything on the data without any human approval or oversight. And one of the challenges with this is, well, you actually want it to do things. And so what we do is we call this soft actions only. What this means is that when an agent is analyzing data and given a task, remembering that these tasks are not only about going and fetching answers, they're about doing things as well. Go and fix those duplicates. Go and fill in those missing values. Go and enforce those policies. Go and tag those records with data quality issues. These are doing actions. One of the important parts here was the idea that we needed the model's intelligence, but we needed it to formulate a very deterministic plan of what to do. And the agents could only run deterministic things. So for example, they couldn't create rules that would use a prompt on live data because there was not that control in place. It could, one out of every 10,000 records, it might decide to skew and go off with another response, even though 9,999 did the right thing and was very confined in what it gave. These are just the realities of working with these kind of heuristic models. A couple of other things, the agents had to have their own identity, and we're seeing this happen in the market today as well. And this allowed you to attach things like access control and role-based access and things like this. And the value here really being that we could almost virtualize or mimic what we would give an individual to do these types of workloads as well. It is often a good practice to kind of reach into other categories or other things that have been solved before instead of having to kind of reinvent everything. So giving agents their own identity, their own kind of user account allowed us to really solve many of these challenges. Things like governance practices that whether you remember to tell the agent to do them or not were always done every single time. Things like an automated audit trail, things like generating lineage, attribution of what did it use to make these types of decisions. These are all things that whether you tell the agent to do it or not, it will always do every single time. These are deterministic harnesses. You don't have the choice of turning them off. And one of the kind of examples of this, I would say that in practice comes up very quickly, but if you were to build this in an ivory tower, you would not come up with these guardrails. The first of this was that everything that an agent can do, you should be able to roll back. And the truth is a lot of engines are not built like this. CluedIn, fortunately, from day one has always been built in this mechanism that if we do something today and in 6 months we realize that we did it wrong, it's not this mess to clean up. In fact, it's a rather very easy thing to clean up. And you can imagine that the actual challenge there is very tricky in that, well, you don't know how many things have been triggered or changed based off that thing you did 6 months ago. So it's not just about rolling that one thing back, it's about rolling back the knock-on effect that happened from those decisions, which in many cases could be very vast. So fortunately, CluedIn has this mechanism built in from day one, and this is very much suited for those agentic workflows where, as you'll probably experience in using it yourself, only after doing a little bit of analysis and trying some things does it realize, oh, that thing that I did before, that's now wrong. Having an easy way to be able to roll that back and clean up is just super critical for this. A couple of the other kind of raw foundations, I think, or principles that were really important is that give the same tools to your agents that you would give to a subject matter expert or to a data steward. In that it's a really important guardrail that you're not giving one tool to agents and another to end users. We found immense benefit in scale with doing this, but also explainability. And that at any point, if you wanted to dive into the details, why was a certain decision made, you can dive into the tools that are already showing audit trails and explainability and things like this, if you really need to dive into that detail. Lots of other things here, but it's worth mentioning this is only the first page. And the reality is that when building integrations to agents, the AI part, the communication between software and AI is the easy part. 99% of the work is all of this. It's all the scaffolding that needs to be put in place in order to make that AI work in production in very regulated industries like we have with our customers at CluedIn. So just little things like making it easy to evolve models, so that as we have agents move to newer and newer models, that suddenly as we move from a GPT 5.2 to a 5.4 or something similar, that we're not seeing these kind of drastic changes in output that suddenly break workflows that were working quite predictably in the past. Things like federation onto channels, which is that this concept of build it and they will come is often not the case in any project, and there's a lot of federation that needs to be done to kind of meet people where they're working on a daily basis. You're seeing this in the market in some of the frontiers of AI, like coding, where we're moving the work to be triggered from Slack and Teams and these places where actually that's what captures most of my attention on a daily basis. And this doesn't change with data management. If we've got something that needs a human in the loop, don't ask them to come to us. We'll meet you where you already are with all the context needed for you to be able to make your decision without having to jump into many systems. And this is just how you really help scale and solve that challenge of getting more involvement from others when it comes to making decisions in the supply chain of data. So you really have to ask yourself then, as every vendor in your data stack has already but will be continuing to invest in their AI capabilities, I think more than ever, the choice of technology you go with is important. And I would say, historically, there's been this market thought that, when it comes to running projects, technology, people, process, and culture, these kind of categories that we've always been talking about. And to some degree, there's been this general alliance that technology is not really the one that's going to get you in the end if you get that right or wrong. It's those other elements. And I'm definitely not saying that those other elements are easy in any manner. But I will say that choosing a good technology does help and can often facilitate a lot of the helping of the complexity of those other elements that we have in projects. However, I would say in the AI era, your choice of data technology stacks and how they work together with each other is going to be more important than ever. And you can imagine a world where maybe a human triggered to AI workload, hey, go off and build me this report. You're going to have your different technology stacks start to interact with each other. And the more, quality of those discussions, the trust that is being formulated between those different chains of calls is going to become very important. So really where the value then shifts towards is, first of all, the true IP of a vendor is in its ability to produce that more trusted result to end users and to agents as well. Now, I'm sure, like me, you've heard these discussions in the market, but I would just agree and echo that at CluedIn, we also see huge truth in this, is that one of the moats that different vendors like CluedIn then have is its own IP of, if it's got a particular task to do, such as find duplicates in a big data set, its IP is in the loop. It's in the ability for that agent to say, right, well, as I'm doing this loop, I need to start here. And then once that's done, I need to do this. And if I get this type of result, probably got to go back to the drawing board and try a different. So that is a loop, right? And that loop is complex, and it can have many branches and go forward, back and forward, and hence the need for things like the ability for your agents to roll back what they've done, because this loop involves that, human style thinking of, actually now that I've looked at the data set from this angle, what I would have done before, let's remove that suggestion for a rule. So the IP, in a way, is in the agent's ability to crack those challenges and do it with the most efficient manner. So another way of saying it, can you solve my problem better than others with the limited amount of tokens, right? So the less tokens you use to solve a problem, the better, as long as you do it to a high level quality. This is really where the agent-to-agent work goes. What we are often hearing from our customers as well, and really our challenge that we are taking on at CluedIn for our customers, is how do I turn this intelligence into something deterministic? I think we could all agree on a few things. Number one, the intelligence of the models are very impressive. And really what we're trying to do is harness that into something that allows me to sleep at night, knowing these agents are operating in a very deterministic manner, in a very guardrailed, very controlled manner, that at the end of the day, there'll always be some human in the loop that is responsible and accountable for the decisions that have been made to run on the data, but those decisions are run in a very deterministic way. There's no kind of thought of what's the agent's going to do on my data tonight because they have their shackles off. This is just not something that our customers are looking at, and this is also not something that we are focusing on at CluedIn. I'd say the other part is, more than ever, companies are looking for solutions, not platforms, especially in this kind of area of data quality and master data management, in that you be the expert. And this has become more and more reasonable to be able to achieve with the evolution of how good these models are getting. In that, right, at a surface level, vendors like us know what you want to do with your data. You want it to be clean, accurate, you want to fill in all the missing values, you want it to be more valuable than the point that you put the data into the system, and more valuable could mean things like, I'm going to give you extra data on this, which will make it more useful and more use cases. I don't want duplicates. We, to some degree, know when you're implementing and working and investing in a platform like MDM or data quality, that these are the kind of rough things that you want. So, be the expert. Don't necessarily ask your customers to be the ones that know about what makes data accurate, what are all the kind of ISO standards around data quality. And I think more and more, this is where the agentic part comes in. And then finally, really it's about being able to form that trust. That is one of CluedIn's, I would say, moat when it comes to the data itself, in that although many parts of the chain, the supply chain, are going to be responsible for making the data more usable and faster and better and all of this, CluedIn's is really about being to bring in that level of trust, that when you see a response through your chat interface of choice, that you see it and you see right, so Sarah from sales, she's had a go at this data and she stamps that it's great data and it's ready to go. Oh, also it looks like it's gone through these types of deterministic data quality checks, deterministic metrics. Oh, it's gone through the data governance team and they've also stamped that everything in this data is true and reliable and up to this particular date. These are things that help form trust, not only from that human to AI perspective, the chat interface, but you can imagine as agents start to work with agencies, the types of metadata that will be shared between these agents in order to say, listen, at the end of the day, if I'm sitting in Microsoft Fabric and I need to go and fetch some data, if I can also talk to a layer like CluedIn that adds, hey, when you're working with that data, it turns out I've got the data that is more backed up by the business. It's the one that's had the most recent audit. It's got the most certifications on data quality. And so you can imagine having that in your supply chain of calls is going to be really handy. So to help with this, At CluedIn, we have our AI agents, and you can very much see them as a kind of extension, a virtual extension of your team. They can do a lot of the things that we would often ask a subject matter expert to do, but then there's a whole bunch of things they can't do without the subject matter expert. Let me give you some examples. So in general, these agents are extremely good at general knowledge. They know that Copenhagen is not in Sweden. They know that Brisbane is not in New Zealand. They know that the population of Australia is not 45 people. There's this general knowledge that they have, which can obviously help spot data quality issues, can help suggest filling in missing values, can help, for example, saying, oh, maybe if it's Copenhagen, maybe the country should actually be Denmark instead. So there's all this general knowledge they had, great for initial analysis, going out there and farming what possible suggestions we could use to improve the overall quality of the data. But then there's the kind of subject matter expert that's very business specific, and this is really where that human and agent interaction come in. And at CluedIn, what we're providing is essentially a canvas to be able to easily instill that knowledge of the business into these agents. Whether that is in formal documents, whether that's linking to official, governance platforms, catalogs, data dictionaries, all of that's a given. But then we also wanted to make sure that the canvas for those ad hoc situations was extremely easy as well. I used the example earlier in this webinar. We've all met these people within our companies, or you've worked with them as customers. And they're these individuals within a business, and they just know everything about a particular data set. It could be the list of vendors or suppliers, it could be products, materials, it could be customers. You go and visit them and they can just spot these issues and they can say, that's not true, that's not the most up-to-date list. Why is that person on our list of vendors? They're not a vendor of ours. Giving them a conduit to be able to instill their knowledge of the business while letting IT and engineering do their part of the supply chain. This is what CluedIn brings. And this is what these agents help scale in a much more reliable fashion as well. I talked about federation being important. We've all had these experiences with projects where we build the most amazing Power BI charts. We build the most amazing web framework. We build the most amazing website. And then there's that point where we need to have parts of the actual users come in and use the system. And with data management, it's no different. Often we have these teams that go in and implement a data quality and MDM system. They're setting up all the policies. We're flagging lots of data quality issues. We found lots of duplicate records. But we need someone in the business to actually stamp and say, okay, this part's right, this part's not, this part's right. And the reality is, to some degree, depending on how much data debt you've built up, you could be dealing with millions and millions of these decisions that need to be made. So you can really see why sometimes there's this friction in, why is the business not, we've given them the response, they just need to click yes or no. If you put yourself in their shoes, that's a pretty daunting job in order to be able to fix some of these issues at that scale as well. Federation is really one of the elements that helps with this scale. It's a combination of breaking down these large number of tasks into easily consumable chunks. That's the first part. And then it's really about delivering all that context out into the channels that people are already working on. And that could be Microsoft Teams for you. It could be ServiceNow tickets for you. It could be Jira tickets. It could be Lineage tickets. It could be Slack. It could be email. But really it's about being able to be in those places that you're already working and involving yourself in a process that makes it easy for people to get involved, not have to jump between multiple different systems. So you can imagine a situation where we found possible duplicate vendors in our procurement system, and then we need to involve someone from procurement to say, listen, are these the same businesses? And providing them all of the background they need to be able to make the decision there, in that ticket, or in that message in Slack, or in that Power App card in Teams. Say, here's why I think these are the same. Here's what our data quality engine says. Here's some online information attributing to this and backing this up. Here's the impact analysis of what will happen when you click that approve or that reject button, and so forth. These are all the things that make those decisions easier for an end user to make. Now, of course, I think where the creativity part comes in is how you extend your team. At CluedIn, we offer templates for common kind of roles within an MDM or data quality project, but where we've seen the most creativity is really with these kind of ability to extend with your own templates. You might have agents that can go off and do good classification. We might go off and have agents that are really good at detecting sensitive data and flagging it to you. We might have agents that are great at looking at online sources and enriching data from websites that don't have APIs and things like this. And so really, I would also say it's kind of made data management a lot more fun and reverse the situation where it's really not always now about pulling up your getting your elbow grease, pulling up your sleeves and kind of getting in and fixing the things that have done before. Agents are pretty good at scaling that part. Actually, really where the creativity comes in is this open canvas where you're starting to think about what could I do in a kind of an environment where AI agents can help me scale the kind of bottom line effects, but also the top line effects as well. So if you're interested in trying CluedIn for yourself and moving into this much more agentic data management approach to scale, historically what's been a very hard challenge to solve, feel free to join our plethora of fantastic customers where we maintain really high user ratings from across the kind of main channels that we operate on. You can head to CluedIn.com right now. You can get the first 15,000 records for free. The first $100 worth of AI agents for free as well. Typically, for a lot of businesses, that's enough to solve a particular use case. That might be cleaning up employee data, it might be cleaning up vendors and suppliers, it might be cleaning up product materials. But of course, we have a pay-as-you-go option that if you need over that, really easy to be able to transact directly through the application itself. Also, if you're interested just to get in touch, there's easy ways to do that on the website form to sign up for a discussion with one of our team. We're more than happy to take you through some of the use cases that we solve with some of our other customers. Thank you very much for spending your time with me. I hope you have a lovely day.